that you are over here to see Klyde Warren Park, having worked in Dallas and been here and seen what's happened and what a difference this park has made. I can't think of any better place for you to come to get ideas for what you want to be doing in Wade Ferguson Park, because this was a project many years in the making, but it's been a big transformation, and it's also a really excellent example of a public-private partnership. This is a project I can tell you from having been there at one of the earlier times it got discussed, the city would not have ever done this by itself. It took having a foundation to spearhead the whole thing, and frankly to go down to Austin and lobby for transportation money to get this going. And so it would definitely not have happened without that partnership. So this is a great example of a really good success story. And so I'm delighted that Tara is here with us today to tell us about it. She is the executive director of the Woodall Rodgers Foundation, and she's been here for 4.5 years. And so she has been here through a lot of the change and the experimentation and the successes. And I know she has she's going to be speaking while we are placing our orders and while we're getting served, because she has a time schedule she's trying to keep. But I'm so delighted you're here, and I won't tell you the name of the other city, but last fall I tried to talk another city into coming to see this about their park, and they said, we don't want to travel that far, and their park has not gone anywhere. So you all are the smart ones. So Tara, thank you so much for being with us, and tell us about the story and what y'all have done here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your group today. It really is an honor and a privilege. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm kind of echoing in my own head right now. I've been home under the weather for the last couple of days, so thank you for giving me a reason to get dressed and get out of the house. I will keep my germs over here to myself, I promise. But Klyde Warren Park really is a passion project. The idea for it came about in a variety of ways. And I think the catalyst that started it all was in late 1999, early 2000s, when Boeing Corporation chose Chicago over Dallas for its headquarters. That was the kick in the pants that Dallas needed to rethink urban space planning and development. And because of that, and because of their honesty in telling us where our deficiencies were, the city started rethinking green space. They started thinking, how do we make downtown more vibrant? How do we create a sense of place? Some various committees were formed within the chamber, from the city council, others. And the idea of covering Woodall Rodgers, creating connectivity between uptown and downtown started. And a couple of different groups had that similar idea. It wasn't until those three orbits came together and they joined forces as the private sector to bring the idea to the city council that it started moving along. The chairman of the Woodall Rodgers Park Foundation is a gentleman named Jody Grant. He started Texas Capital Bank, which actually offices in this building. He was sitting in his office looking down over the freeway thinking there has to be a way to connect, to create green space. The Real Estate Council, led by Linda Owen at the time, was looking to make an impact grant into the community. They wanted a transformational project that would change Dallas. They wanted the Real Estate Council to be at the forefront of that. How could they invest in something? One of their board members, John Zog, with Crescent Real Estate, had been tapped by his boss to think about connectivity. They owned a lot of property in Uptown, Downtown, and the West End. How could they create connections, street level, pedestrian connections between their properties? Eventually, those three ideas came together. They applied for the impact grant from the Real Estate Council. They harnessed their collective ideas and came up with the money to do a feasibility study. Jody and Sheila Grant put in $1 million, the Real Estate Council put in $1 million, and then later another $500,000. Texas Capital Bank put in $1 million. There's $3.5 million in venture capital, seed money, to say, could it be possible? They did an engineering study and found out it could. Then the dream really got rolling. That group went to the Mayor Laura Miller at the time, and said, we have this idea. We want to build a park out of thin air. Well, that's crazy. Only, who builds parks out of thin air? They say, no, it's really possible. Here's how we could do it. but it needs to be a public-private partnership. We can't do it alone. So she said, well, I need to know the private sector is committed. You've got about 6 weeks before I can get you on the bond ballot. Show me you can get $10 million in private money raised. That'll tell me the private sector has an appetite for this. I'll believe it then. And they did it. They got $10 million pledged, not money in the bank, pledged. They got on the bond, $20 million from the City of Dallas bond. They got $20 million in TxDOT and $17 million in federal stimulus money. Not all of it came in on the front end. It came in over time. The stimulus money came in during the recession. They didn't know. I wasn't part of the team at the time, but they didn't know they were going to be able to get that. They had shovel-ready projects that qualified for stimulus money. So they had $55 million in public dollars raised, $57 million, and $55 million was raised privately. $112 million total was raised, $97 million was spent. Ground started being made. You didn't do a ground breaking, they did a ground making in 2009. And that's when they started the work to shore up the sides of Woodall Rodgers. The highway retaining walls had been there, but they weren't strong enough to support the structure. What TxDOT is now doing is when they're going in and doing work around the state, they're shoring up these sides so that it can support a deck in the future. Even if a community is not thinking about the deck, they're planning ahead. They're looking at it in Houston, they're looking at it in Austin. Obviously, our other deck park over by the Dallas Zoo has already been approved, so that work will be inclusive of the structure. There was a lot of money spent just to shore up the walls. If this had ever been contemplated back in the late 60s, early 70s, and Woodall was dug, they would have done it very differently. So TxDOT has learned a lot along the way. And so 2009, construction began. It opened in 2012. And ever since then, we've been hosting about 1 million guests annually in the park, which far exceeds our expectations. And what that said to us was, Dallas was hungry for green space and didn't even know it. Public parks had been around, park and rec facilities had been around, but a common gathering space, a place for the community to come together in a central location, free for everyone, and that's key. Free to the patron means 1,300 free programs and events annually. And you wrap your mind around that. On a day like today, we're not doing yoga in the park. But this morning, if it had been a nice day, there would have, on average, been 180 people doing yoga in the park this morning. It's by far our biggest program that we do. We do Pilates classes, we do boot camp, we do Zumba, we do stroller boot camp, we have mommy and me time on Tuesdays. We do concerts every Thursday in the park from March through November, free. But free is not free to the foundation. There is a 501c3, the entity for whom I work, that pays for all of that. And it is a city-owned park that's 100% privately managed. Not one city tax dollar goes into the operation or maintenance of Klyde Warren Park. The city does invest in the tunnel below. That's where their money is spent. And they estimate about $1 million a year to maintain the tunnel. Cleanliness, lights, safety equipment, etc. So the city is invested for sure in the park. We spend about $4.5 million annually to operate the park, and then another $250,000 in capital investments annually. So we had planned to operate in the red for the first couple of years. That's why we raised more money than we needed to build it. So we had a $2 million deficit our first year of operation, $1 million our second, $500,000 our third. We broke even in 2016. We did it again in 2017. What we're needing to do now is grow that revenue so that we can cover our operating and our capital. And we don't have to dip into our reserves. We did not tell our story in the early days. We didn't go out to the public and say, we're a nonprofit. We need your support. We need to do an annual giving campaign. We need to do a fundraiser. We need to do other things. We thought we could model ourselves after Bryant Park and purely get it from sponsor money, food and beverage income, That restaurant is our tenant. We're the landlord. So we have rent and we revenue share. The food trucks, that was a happy accident. We did not intend to be in the food truck business, but our restaurant opened 1 year after the park. We needed a food outlet. We had to beg and plead people to come and serve as a food truck operator. They thought, oh, nobody's going to go to that park. Now we have a wait list of over 60 trucks who want to serve the park. So they do get on a schedule. They do have a contract with us. We do revenue share with them. They don't pay rent, but it's risk reward. They do well, we do well. They don't do well, we ask them to leave. Because there's another truck right behind them who can come in. That space is too valuable for underperformers. We have event rental income. We rent space in Klyde Warren Park for activities. It could be, we had a gentleman do his 60th birthday party in the park, and he bought a Beatles cover band in, and they played for everybody. It was a ton of fun. We had reserved space for his guests. We've done team building exercises. We had an insurance company rent the entire Ginsburg family Great Lawn to play a cornhole tournament for all their agents, and they narrowed it down to a grand champion. It was a lot of fun. We've done product activations. Starbucks came in and gave away samples of tea. Mary Kay came in and did samples of a new moisturizer they wanted to introduce to the marketplace. So there are revenue streams that you can find to help monetize your space. Very rarely would we ever cordon off the bulk of the park because it's still free to the public to use. Some of the demographics we're especially proud of is we're 70% female in that park. So remember I said there's about 1 million people coming on average. In the park world, if your male-female ratio skews heavy on the female side, that's an excellent indicator of safety. Women are decision makers for them, their families, for their friend groups, and they feel comfortable coming here. Your female ratio is higher, that's a good sign. So we're really protective of that. We also love the fact that we're diverse. Our diversity in the park mirrors that of Dallas County. When this park was getting built, there were a lot of naysayers saying, oh, it's going to be the fill in the blank, haven for the homeless. It's going to be the rich park. It's just going to be the park that serves downtown. Kids won't come. None of that is true. It is truly a park for everyone. Now we have our challenges, parking, obviously. We don't own any parking around the park, and that is probably our #1 issue. When families are coming in from the suburbs, where do they park? So we've applied for a grant to get a new website built, and one of the biggest features will be an interactive parking map to try to help people find where to park. There are over 10,000 parking spaces within less than a half mile around the park, but you don't know where they are unless you're familiar with downtown Dallas. The Dallas Museum of Art is really happy with us right now because they've just about paid off the bond debt on their parking garage that they built because they've opened it up to park patrons. That, again, was a happy accident, unintended revenue for them, which they love. They've also turned around their front door. The front of the Dallas Museum of Art for 30 plus years faced Ross Avenue. It now faces the park. They took down that barrier that they needed to keep out the noise from Woodall Rodgers. Now that noise isn't there because the park covers it up. And they have a visual sight line. And we love seeing field trips go back and forth between the park and the museum. Renzo Piano is the architect that designed the Nasher Sculpture Center. He said 15 years ago, if he had ever thought that this could have been possible, he would have designed it differently. He had to create a sound barrier between the sculpture center and the highway. Now they need an opening. They need to be able to draw people back and forth. So they're looking at what can they do. We like to say we're the +1 to a lot of activities. Your field trips are coming to go to the museum or to go to the AT&T Performing Arts Center and the park. They're coming to the Parade and the park. You're bringing your family down for an experience and the park. We like to be additive to whatever is going on. It's a great place for the kids to come and blow off steam, run around before they get on the bus and head back. In fact, we started seeing so many field trips, we created a curriculum. Teachers 3rd through 5th grade can go online and download activities they can do in the classroom before they get here, while they're here and afterwards. And they speak to the TEKS and the TAC standardized testing objectives in history, in science, in art, in physical education, and I've forgotten what the other one is, social studies. So teachers can look and figure out, okay, we're looking at geometry. Let's look for shapes in the park. We're doing physical education. Here are activities that we can do in the park. We want teachers to realize this is an educational experience as well as just let your hair down and go play. There is a statistic in the US, on average, children spend 30 minutes a day in unstructured play and 7 hours a day in front of a video screen of some sort. We're so proud of the fact that at this park, they can have unstructured play. They can just come and enjoy. Yes, we do have free Wi-Fi. You can still be on your device while you're in the park. But we hope people will unplug and reconnect with one another. And that's one of the additive values of this park. Another value is economic impact. This building that we're in sold in 2016 for almost $500 a square foot for the land. In 2009, when construction began, it was $80 a square foot. It's the park effect. We don't have a beach, we don't have a mountain. We have this amazing 5.2 acres of a lid over a freeway that has created unprecedented economic impact around here. And you can see the property values have gone up in some cases, over property rental values have gone up in some cases, 60, 80% since the park has opened, which is huge. There's a construction site right across the street where the Dallas Symphony Foundation owned land. It had a red sculpture on it for years right outside the Meyerson. I refer to it as a postage stamp. It was a tiny piece of property. They sold it for $7 million. Good for the Symphony Foundation. That is significant money back to them. And now there's an 18-story building that's gone into that property. I would have never guessed a building could have fit on that piece of land, much less one that big. So that is the story of what the park has done in the real estate community. We have a public improvement district. It's a PID around the park. That is one of our most important revenue sources. We're going to get about $1 million from it, and we share with the Dallas Arts District. So not only do property owners benefit the park, they're also benefiting the Arts District by agreeing to that assessment. It's not a tax, it's a voluntary assessment, and every 7 years we have to go out for renewal for that PID, but it's critically important. We have 5 revenue streams for the park. The PID, sponsorship income. We do sell sponsors, Nissan, Southwest, Dallas Morning News. Those are cash sponsorships to the park. We have media partnerships with CBS 11 and 102.9, the radio station. We have event rental, I mentioned, food and beverage, and then development. Traditional nonprofit activities, fundraising event. Parker Palette is something we just created. We've done 3 of them so far, and they're significant revenue generators for the foundation. An annual giving campaign. We're telling the public, if you like coming to yoga, how about making a donation? How about giving to the park on a regular basis? We were bashful about saying that in the early days. We're not anymore. Like, we're a 501c3, we're going to act like one. So those are the 5 revenue streams, and our challenge as the foundation is to maximize every one of those. We can't grow our staff, we can't grow as an organization until we grow our revenue. And we want to keep operating in the black so that we can be obviously a fiscally responsible organization. We have 13 employees. We are very tiny. Bryant Park, same size park, 30 years old, Midtown Manhattan. They have a staff of almost 40. They have a $15 million budget. I have staff and budget in me, I will admit it. But we'll get there. We're only 5 years old. We just turned 5 in October of 2012. And I think I have rattled long. If y'all have any questions, I'd love to answer any questions you might have about the maintenance of the park or the operation, the programming. I wasn't here when the park public-private partnership got put together. I was working in Dallas, but I was in the sports industry. I came to the park after it opened, but I feel like I've learned that history along the way.
So for sponsorships, What's the major selling point? Obviously, you don't have naming rights on the park itself. So what are you selling?
So the question is sponsorship. What's the asset? What are we selling? We're selling impressions and we're selling community investment. So most of our sponsors give us money from two buckets. They give us money from their marketing dollars, which means we have to return a value on impressions. Having 1 million people in the park is that's a lot of eyeballs. Having them be mostly women is very valuable to a lot of brands because, again, decision makers. We also sell the civic investment. It's a foundation. It's corporate giving to the community to support the community. So Southwest, Nissan, they want to be here to show the public they're invested in their community. It's not like where I come from in the sports world where you've got TV viewers and you've got season ticket holders and you've got those traditional assets to give back. We have to play to both of those appeal points. It's not a tradition. I don't have enough assets to just make the money on the marketing side, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
Sorry, my voice is starting to go.
Tara, we're trying to record with just the little mounted mic. So if you could please repeat the question when people ask
Sure.
it. We're getting you well, but not anybody else.
You got it.
Thank you.
But Don had mentioned the question of the naming rights. Can you talk just a little bit about what happened with the naming rights here? Because
So the
that's
question
an
is,
interesting story.
naming rights, how do you do that? So when our founders were creating this park and they needed to raise that $55 million in private money, how did they do it? They sold naming rights. So Klyde Warren Park is actually a 9th grader at St. Mark's, Klyde Warren. His dad, Kelsey.
He was like in kindergarten at the time his dad bought those naming rights.
So he's a terrific young man. Kelsey, his father, owns an oil and gas company, and he made the donation for the naming rights and largest capital campaign donation, and he got the right to name it. He wanted to name it after his son. And many people think it's in memoriam. It's not. He's healthy, he's happy, he's fabulous. He volunteers every summer. He's here. We give him code names when he's down here. We don't want him to feel uncomfortable when he's working, but he's a terrific young man. He's a baseball player. So that is a right. He got to name the entire park. We have the Ginsburg family Great Lawn. We have the Nancy Collins Fisher Pavilion, which is the building the restaurant is in. We have the Muse family Performance Pavilion, which is our performance stage. We have My Best Friend's Park, which is our dog park. Garrett and Cecilia Boone, who started the Container Store, gave the money for that. We have a couple of areas that still are to be named. So we're actively looking for donors to come put their name on the Children's Park, on the East Lawn. We hope that we're going to be announcing a campaign to put in a fountain on the Pearl Lawn. So the lawn closest to Pearl Street, we want to create a Bellagio style fountain that can be an iconic blimp shot for Dallas. You know, it's got jets shooting up, it's got lights, it's got an interactive splash pad so kids can come play. Kids of all abilities and can access it and play. Shade, water, and music cause people to linger longer. And so we want to provide all of that with our new fountain to activate the east end of the park. Did I answer your question about naming? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When did the pit go into place?
I'm sorry?
The pit?
The pit, when did it go into place? The pit is in its 4th year, going into its 5th year. So after the park opened, it came into place. So we'll go out to renew in 2020. So it's in its 3rd year. In 2020, we go out for renewal. And then in 2021, we'll start our new pit cycle.
When you say it's voluntary, it's not voluntary to contribute to it, it's just voluntary to...
So we have 3 tests that we have to hit 2 of 3 objectives for the city of Dallas. You have to have 60% of the total number of property owners. You have to have 60% of the total land value, or you have to have 60% of the total land mass. You have to get 2 of those 3 in Dallas to get a PID approved. So once you get 60% of 2 of those 3 objectives, every property owner, whether they approved or rejected, has to participate. You cannot self-select in or out.
So it's technically not voluntary.
After
Right.
it's approved.
After it's approved, it's not voluntary. You cannot opt out.
And
Yes.
your PID starts here and it goes over to include the arts district,
does.
so you don't overlap.
We do.
There's another PID for Uptown that's been in place since
do
the
overlap.
80s and 90s. You do overlap.
We overlap with Uptown and we overlap with Downtown. Our PID is 2.5 cents per $100 of property value. Theirs are 12 or 13. Because we overlap, we agreed to keep ours relatively de minimis. We don't want to be an undue burden. So between ours and theirs, the max PID value is achieved. We will not raise our PID value because we overlap with theirs. Remember, our land didn't exist. So their PID came right up to Woodall. Downtown came right up to Woodall. There was nothing. We created space that didn't exist, but there's no land to get PID revenue from, so they agreed to let us overlap. And because it benefits the Arts District as well, everybody's like, okay, we get it. It's benefiting two very important institutions, organizations. Yes.
What, can you repeat the 5 revenue streams?
So she wants me to repeat the 5 revenue streams. PID, sponsorship income, food and beverage, event rental, and development, traditional nonprofit activities. Yes?
Of your employees, how are they divided between programming, organizational management, and maintenance?
Okay. So the question is, how do we divide and conquer? How are the employees deployed, so to speak? Everybody, for the most part, is a department of 1 or 2. So we have a VP of operations. He has a park technician that is his right hand, who's a journeyman electrician, who spends all day, every day working on electrical issues in the park. Remember, we're a deck. There is constant vibration. There is constant motion on this deck. We had electrical lines that fuse together and get severed because it's that motion that's just taking its wear and tear on the park. We outsource security, we outsource custodial, and we outsource horticultural, pulling weeds, putting seasonal color in, mowing the lawn, trimming the trees, that sort of thing. And so those 2 gentlemen manage those contracts. The largest department we have is events and programs. We're doing 1,300 free programs and events. So we have a director of programs, and she is over getting program partners to come into the park to do free activities, as well as managing guest services. We have 2 game carts that serve the park where you can get free Yahtzee, checkers, chess, backgammon, headbands, you name it, free games. We have a putting green. You can check out a putter and a golf ball and ping pong paddles. So guest services are our front line. They're our park ambassadors. They manage the game carts. And then we have event rental income, and so you have to service that event. Our event manager, basically, he has no time for outbound sales. He just answers the phone and from companies, experiential agencies, from products wanting to introduce their product into the park, and he books that and then fulfills it. So that's the biggest team that we've got. And then we have a CFO who is also over IT and the office and human resources, and the list goes on and on and on. And there is a part-time accountant under the CFO. We have a chief development officer who I just hired 7 months ago. I didn't have anybody helping me generate income out in the field, so to speak. Everybody was working on generating income, but she's the first person we've hired who's actually spending their time out of the office meeting and setting up meetings and prospecting with donors, with sponsors, etc. And then there is a development manager under her, a marketing manager, department of 1. We have a PR contract and we have a social media contract. She manages both of those. And me. That's it. We're small but mighty.
So what's the one thing that's been successful that you didn't expect to succeed as well as it has?
So what's the big success story that we did not expect? I would say the children's park. The children's park, when it was being built, there weren't any children living down here. The demographic that's growing the fastest in Uptown is 0 to 5 years old. And why it stops at 5 is because there's no school to support them. So once the millennials get married, they're now staying in Uptown. It used to be as soon as they got married, they were out. They're staying, they're having their first child, and then they're leaving because there's no school to support those children. But there is a park to support them now. And so this is their backyard. This is their playground. We've got housing. We've got 40,000 housing units within a 2-mile radius of the park. That didn't exist 10 years ago, not even close. So there are families now. They're not just empty nesters. There are children. We've got schools, Booker T, First Baptist. This is where their PE classes come and play. This is where they come and blow off steam. So at the children's park, when they were like, oh, it's too big. There's no kids. Who's going to use it? It is by far the busiest place in the entire park. And if the weather were nice, it would be stroller to stroller, elbow to elbow. We need to make it bigger. We need to take our botanical gardens, and we can add about 6,000 gross square feet of space. We could put in more play equipment. We could put a birthday pavilion in there. Please have enough restrooms. We don't. We miss completely on the restroom issue. Brandon knows. He has seen the lines.
Let's talk about that. So your operating hours at the park, do you close? And how do you manage your restrooms? Are they in one place? How many do you have? Or how do you lock those down? How do you do that?
Okay, so operating hours at the park are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., but we have no gates. So how do we close the park? We turn the lights off, and we have 2 security 24/7, 7 days a week. And if you're walking home through the park, great, perfect. You can walk, and we will help you get at 2 a.m. through the park. If you need to stay and take a little nap because you can't get home, we're going to get you up and get you on your way. So we do have fitness instructors that like to use the park for their client. They want to come out at 6:30 in the morning. That's okay. We build a relationship with them. We build a rapport with them. We're not going to turn the lights on for you, though, because it'll blind our neighbors. We have condo units right above us, and our lights shine right in their bedroom windows. So we learned the hard way not to turn those lights on for the boot camp instructors. I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question? Restrooms. So we have a custodial staff that's always on duty in the park, for the most part. We send them home, towards the evening hours. But we are fastidious with our restroom maintenance. We want it to be the cleanest restroom in the city of Dallas. So they have a schedule that they have to keep to go through. There's 2 family stalls in the children's park. What I would like to do is convert those into 3 male, 3 female, and make more units down there. We have the space for it. We just didn't build it that way. That's about a $300,000 proposition. I don't have the money to do it yet. And then right here at Relish, our hamburger stand, right here on the corner of the southwest porch, we have more. That's the other public restroom facility. And there's changing tables in there. They're pure white. There's pictures on the wall. And we go through and we wipe down the countertops. We are making sure those are spotless all the time. And when we have big events, we load up on our custodial staff so someone is dedicated just to bathroom maintenance. We got that from Bryant Park. And that's one of their big, we're gonna make sure our bathrooms are clean.
Terry, could you tell them about what you did? I know before the restaurant was open, before the bathroom was open, you guys had the
comfort stations, yes. So Brandon's absolutely right. Before the Relish opened, before the restaurant opened, we brought in comfort stations, Corian countertops, AC and heat, lit, dried flowers in there. I mean, we wanted it to be not a porta potty. It had a flushing, toilet system. So this park is all about excellence. We want to be ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's our brand promise. Everyone in this park is welcome. You are greeted, you're respected, follow the rules. That's how we handle the homeless. So as long as they're obeying the rules, they're welcome to stay. It's when they don't obey the rules, our security will approach them and say, hi, welcome to Klyde Park, we're so glad you're here. Please know that, fill in the blank, no panhandling, no soliciting, no unpacking your goods and setting up, your little area. No. And so once they get the hang of it and we annoy them enough, they'll move on. And we have there's several homeless people who come to the park on a regular basis. There's one gentleman who comes every morning. He's here from about 7 a.m. till about 8:30. He cleans up in the restroom. He charges his iPad, he sits on the southwest porch and reads the free newspaper. He is welcome to do that. All of those things are allowed and within the rules, and he is a fabulous partner. I mean, we see him every day. So as long, and he's gone before the park really wakes up and gets rolling. We've had to issue criminal trespass before, people who simply just don't follow the rules habitually. The City of Dallas has been fantastic to work with us. The PD comes through regularly. We see them almost every day. We have Segway Patrol, we have Bike Patrol, we have Mounted Patrol, we've got Foot Patrol. They're always just kind of checking on us to see how things are going. And we know we're a soft target too. You know, this is a public space over a freeway. So we have really great communication with the Emergency Command Center. If there are protests that they get wind of that are coming our way, they'll let us know, and they work great with us to help us out.
So Tara, I know you told us that you had a time constraint. Yes. So I think unless anybody has a final question, Donna?
So I'm surprised that you can rent it as extensively as you do because it's so heavily used. So if I rent that park for my wedding, do you actually block that area off? Or
we do. And it's interesting you said wedding. I have not found a bride yet with a budget big enough to do a wedding in the park because of the weather. And so once she understands how much a tent will cost as a rain plan, and you can't drive a stake into the ground for your tent in Klyde Warren Park because there's only about 6 to 8 inches of soil in some areas. You have to water barrel it, and now you've got these big ugly columns going down the middle of your tent with these water barrels to hold it up. So we rent sections of the park. You want to do a cocktail reception, maybe you just rent Moody Plaza and everything else is open and block it off. Right. We do white picket fence, we do hedge walls, we do boxwoods, we do stanchions. We get real creative with how we block it off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so maybe those weddings will be in the future. I know I was in a tour at Bryant Park early last year, and they told us that not only do they have, he had the number of how many proposals, how many weddings, and they have an annual gathering of all the people that got married there.
Oh, we get lots of proposals. We love proposals.
Right. So, well, thank you again so much. I know we'll have more conversation here, and I'm sure Brandon is going to have some more to share with everybody as well. But thank you so much for being with us and for your time.
My pleasure. For me, ask your inside source. He's got all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara, that was great.